So when I say it's not your fault, when I try to encourage people to not guilt themselves, I usually get shot at, so to say, from both sides. People who never feel like it's their fault, who always blame somebody else, who tend to not accept responsibility for their actions, take it and run with it. I always knew it's not my fault. It's his fault, her fault, everybody else's fault, not mine. She just confirmed it. That's obviously not the effect that I'm looking for. And people for whom the message is actually intended, who tend to blame themselves and guilt themselves over everything and guilt themselves extensively, do not accept that message because they go, wait, what is she saying? Is she saying that it's not right to accept responsibility for your actions? That doesn't sound right. So that's why I'm here today, and I want to clarify this. This is not what I'm saying. So let's look at what it means when I say, don't feel like it's your fault. Don't guilt yourself. Let's talk about it. Let's first turn to neurolinguistics and look at the fact that there are two meanings for the word fault. The first meaning is in the sense of your responsibility, or a better way to put it is your liability. The term is used correctly by insurance companies. So when you rear-end somebody in a car, it's your fault / liability because you've caused an accident and you are responsible to pay the damages to the person who you plowed into the butt of. So that's the first definition of the word fault. The second definition of the word fault, it comes in the sense of blame. It's a little bit harder to explain because it's less technical, less logical, but this is how we tend to interpret it more often than the liability meaning of it. And that means it's your fault as though you have a fault in you. You've rear-ended that person because you weren't watching, because you're not responsible enough, because you've done something wrong. So it's your fault, meaning there is something wrong with you. So do you guys see the difference of fault as an event versus a fault as a personal quality? Let's look into this a little bit deeper, though. So you rear-end this person. Regardless of the reason why you rear-ended it, fault and meaning number one, liability, is going to be there. And that's what the insurance company is going to tell you. Hey, you caused the accident, therefore it's your fault / liability, you're paying the damages. Or an insurance company is paying your damages. Your premium is going up. But anyway, so if we look at the bigger picture of what happened, why did you rear-end this person? Scenario number one, let's say you were on your phone. You were texting, something you're not supposed to do when you drive. Or you ran a red light. You thought it was yellow and you thought you're going to make it, and you did. Or you'd indeed not an attentive enough person and you were looking around and you were not paying attention, and that's why you caused this accident. That's scenario number one. Scenario number two, yesterday your drive line, or maybe it's not the drive line, I'm not super technical, but something got busted in your car and your brake fluid leaked out. And you didn't realize that until you stepped on the brakes and there was no brakes, and so you rear-end the car ahead of you. regardless of if it's scenario number one and you actually did something that you weren't supposed to, or scenario number two where you were totally unaware of what's going on and you couldn't do anything to prevent it, it is still going to be your liability and your responsibility to take care of the damages if you rear-end the car ahead of you. And so when I say do not blame yourself, I'm not saying do not pay the damages. Are you following? It's one thing to accept the responsibility without tripping on whether you did it deliberately or not deliberately or what went on and so on and so forth. If you have caused a negative event, it's only right to accept that responsibility. But what happens is that we start trying to find a reason of why we did that and guilting ourselves. And the process of guilting ourselves looks like an endless spinning in your mind of what you could have done better, what you should have done better, of how you could have made a different choice, which is a subject of its own. And I prove to you in other videos and other modules that we don't always have as much control of making a choice as we think we do. And so spinning over and over and over of what you're going to do different next time and how you could have made a different choice, it's very unproductive. There are some people whose driveline broke and they rear-ended the person in front of them, are still going to go through this guilt trip, and they're going to go, well, next time. Well, first of all, next time you don't know, because next time the situation is going to be different. Situation never repeats itself to a T. There's always a variation. So I submit to you, you don't know what you're going to do next time. And okay, maybe I should have taken it to a car mechanic. Well, that could not have prevented your brake fluid from leaking out if you hit. Right? And I submit to you that even if you commit to taking your car to a mechanic every week to make sure there are no damages, it's not going to happen. That's not realistic. So you see, this is very illogical of what you could have done better, should have done better, holds no water, because some things are out of your hands and into the circumstances that you cannot control. But what happens is that this mind spinning, this guilting consumes so much energy and so much effort that you feel you're actually doing something. What that does is actually gives you an excuse, allows you to subconsciously put a check mark in that box of having done something. And so you don't feel as compelled to pay your damages, so to say. And you're so drained of energy that you really don't have it in yourself to care enough for that person. And what that brings on is the feeling of frustration. You see what I'm going through? And now you want me to worry about your damages? We may not come out and tell ourselves that, or anybody else especially, but it's subconscious because we've just exhausted that energy on kicking ourselves in the butt over this. And so we're drained. We physically don't have it in ourselves, the way we describe it. So what's the takeaway? Instead of wasting your energy and effort and time and good mood on this endless spinning and trying to figure out what you could do better next time or what you should have done better, accept the responsibility. Hey, I've rear-ended you. That does not make me a bad person. Maybe there is a lesson to be learned if I was texting. Now I see what happens, but that's my lesson. That has nothing to do with you. If my brake line broke, there is no lesson I can really learn. It's the circumstances. And so, water under the bridge, I still rear-ended you. I need to pay my damages. I need to make sure I can do whatever I can do to help you out. If you realize that you've done something that caused a negative effect on another person, do what you can to pay the damages, to either correct it or at least improve on it. Even if it's as much as an apology, and that will make that person feel better. And if this is all you can do in this situation, then do that. That is going to do a lot more good than sitting there and kicking yourself in the butt over and over and over.